financial problems, elder law, criminal law, tax problems, business matters, divorce, personal injury, bankruptcy, your life, your reality. Life is complicated. There is the law and there is reality. Welcome to Law and Reality, sponsored by THAV GROSS. Now here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to this segment of Law and Reality. Today's topic is the offer in compromise for taxes, personal and business. We're going to keep the tax conversation to this topic of offer in compromise. Brian Small, good morning.
Good morning. It's a timely conversation because personal returns have been due in October if you had an extension.
I thought they were due in April.
If you have an extension. Corporate returns were due at the end of September, and now here we are in the middle of fall, and people are wondering how to pay their bills that they can't afford to pay.
Jeffrey Linden.
Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, Ken. Good morning. So what is an offer in compromise?
Offer in Compromise is a program offered by the IRS through their Fresh Start program, which allows you to settle your tax debt in certain circumstances for less than what you owe.
Wait, is it just through the IRS? Doesn't the state of Michigan have an offer in compromise program too?
For the state taxes, yes.
Okay.
You know, it's an interesting one on the state. The state adopted, I think it's about, I'm going to guess 5 years ago, but it's probably longer. The state finally adopted basically the same parameters and rules of the federal offer in compromise program. And for years, they didn't have it. We used to struggle that we would be able to resolve the tax debt with the offer in compromise program with the feds, and then the state, we'd get nowhere. And then the state finally adopted that program, but I don't think they've ever gotten good at it, not like the feds.
There's a lot of differences. The state, it's a little bit more wizardry. It's not as transparent. You don't really see what's going on. You sort of send stuff off, disappears for a while, and then it comes back with an offer or a conclusion. They will follow. They have the best program they have is that if you do a federal IRS offer first and it gets approved, then you can just basically cut and paste it, and the state will accept the same ratio, percentages, and conditions.
So that's the easiest way of doing it. One of the rules we've always used is if you have limited resources available that you're going to use to pay a tax and then try and do an offer in compromise or a payment plan or something else on the rest, we always say, get rid of the state first, leave the liability with the feds. It's funny if you think about it. Our federal government has unlimited resources compared to a state government. So you would think that Uncle Sam was more difficult to deal with than Aunt State.
Right.
Only if they're in Congress.
But your Uncle Sam has a nice streak in him, whereas the state tax collecting authority has very few nice streaks.
Yes.
I'm trying to be nice to the state by saying very few.
Yeah.
I have yet to find one, but I suspect there is a nice streak somewhere in the Department of Treasury, the state of Michigan. But we know the feds have this program. Now, how's the program work? Because here's what people say to me. Well, I called this company because they said they have former IRS agents working there. So they have kind of given me the impression that they call their friends at the IRS and say, I represent Bill, I want to make an offer, cut me the best deal you can get.
God, that would be great.
So is it like an insider program?
That would be
is that
so
how
cool,
it works?
wouldn't it? To know somebody that knows somebody?
It's horsepucky.
Horsepucky?
Horsepucky.
I'd like to know somebody that knows somebody to help.
It doesn't work
no,
that
it doesn't
way.
work that way. It's basically
It
a formula.
never works that way.
No, it's a program and there's criteria, and you have to fit within the criteria or it doesn't work. And there's some art in negotiating some of the points in the criteria in terms of what qualifies and doesn't. But in general, it's your assets, the value of your assets, plus your monthly income less your allowable expenses, and you get a number. Positive or negative, and then that drives whether your offer is accepted or not.
Allowable expenses.
Yes.
So you're telling me that the government gets to tell me what I get to spend?
If you want the government to cut your debt, yes.
Well,
So
that's not fair. I mean,
wait a second.
How are they allowed to tell
wait a
me
second.
what I'm allowed to spend?
Are you the guy, Brian Small, right? You're the guy that does bankruptcies all the time, right? You're like an expert in it.
Yeah.
Don't you have allowable expenses in the
Yeah, I
bankruptcy
do, but
court?
this is for the show, and I'm trying to,
Oh, so you're not Brian Small here. You're Jerry the bartender.
I'm just asking a question.
I thought you were Brian Small, but you're Jerry the bartender.
So that
aren't you?
people understand what it means by allowable
So they allow
expenses.
so much for food, so much for housing.
Yeah.
Okay,
et
so
cetera.
let's say
Now, are those numbers reasonable?
Depending on your perspective. From the government's perspective, they're reasonable. From the debtor's perspective, they're usually not.
But
so,
they are. But
so
they
the
are what
government
they are.
But they're
allows.
workable.
So
They're
you
workable.
take your income and you subtract these allowable expenses.
Yes.
And they may be less than what you actually spend.
Correct.
But that's what the government says. You get X number of
So-
dollars for food, X number of dollars for clothing,
Right.
X
So
number of
take-
dollars for a car payment.
Yes.
Yes,
So
cetera.
and so
take,
forth.
take a typical family. Let's say you have a family of 4 living in a modest suburban home, 4-bedroom, colonial. It's not, not a mansion. They have normal expenses, and their family income is $80,000 a year. In that case, with their allowable expenses, pretty much, we know that your expenses of a normal family would leave you 0 left if you were making $80,000 a year.
Yeah.
Would the allowable
So-
expenses usually cover that?
Yeah, and they're geared to be, depending on where you live by county, they're structured and adjusted based on what the IRS understands that cost of living may be different from place to place, and they're also structured different depending on the people in your household. So a
could
family
we-
of 1
So for the
will
sake
have
of
different from 4.
discussion, could we assume family of 4 living in Farmington Hills, Michigan, modest home, 80,000 of income, their allowable expenses would pretty much use up their income so that they'd have 0 left?
Probably.
Okay. Now, if their income was 200,000, is it fair to say that there would be something left over?
Probably.
So we have whatever is left over becomes,
The basis.
The basis of the minimum offer.
okay, so I want to kind of come back to that after we take the break, and I want to ask the question of what does the amount of the debt, how does that bear into it, whether I owe 10,000 in taxes or $1 million? We'll be
Good
back
question.
after the break.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV GROSS specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
For almost 60 years, Samasco Law has been the trusted source for helping families navigate the uncertain world of estate planning and elder law. And now, our firm is growing even stronger with the addition of attorneys Joe Frazard and Kelsey Samasco. 2 more lawyers to make sure your family is protected now and into the future. Call Samasco Law today for a free consultation. Our hardworking team is standing by to provide you peace of mind. Samasco Law. Protect what matters.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV GROSS.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV GROSS. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
All right, we're back. So, first question is, if I owe $20,000 or I owe $1 million, how does that play into your formula?
It doesn't. It's strictly based on what you can afford to pay, your assets, your income, and your expenses.
Okay.
Well,
so
when you say assets, all right, we've got a house.
Yeah.
How much of a house am I allowed to keep if I'm looking to file an offer in compromise? I mean, I've got a $300,000 house and I owe $200,000 on it. Is there?
So you have equity.
Do I get to keep my house?
You have equity in your house. Yes, you get to keep your house.
So the government can't take my house in an offer in compromise.
But what about the equity?
Well, that's a different question. The government has the power to levy against you for unpaid taxes, and they can seize anything they want to.
But we're
They
doing an
won't,
offer in compromise.
But we're doing an offer in compromise. They
So
won't.
can we talk about how much is the
do that.
equity? What happens with the equity?
The equity goes into the formula in terms of your assets. So if your only asset is your house, and in your example, $100,000 in equity, then 80% of that, $80,000, would be used as your minimum offer, and that's
Okay.
all things being equal.
So let's just take your example. $300,000 house, $200,000 mortgage, $100,000 of equity, $80,000 goes towards what you have to spend on your offer.
80% of the equity, or is it 80% of the value of the home, minus the
You're right.
mortgage?
It's actually 80% of the fair market value of the home.
So
less
that's
your debt.
$240, less $200, so $40,000.
So $40,000 would be considered your minimum offer. in
Okay,
that
so
circumstance.
40, and then your income, when I said 80,000 of income was all the expenses would be zero, then you'd have to pay 40,000 in your offer, basically?
In that example, yes.
All right, so if I owed,
Now,
let me just finish.
the reason I brought that up is not because is because sometimes the offer might work, and sometimes a bankruptcy to
We'll
get
kick
discharged
o-
of taxes might be more
We'll
appropriate.
kick over to that quickly. Okay, so if I had 80,000 of income, my expenses are zero, 40,000 would be my offer. It wouldn't matter if I owed 4 million in taxes or 100,000 in taxes, right?
Right, you said
But
that
if I
wrong.
only owe 30,000 in taxes, then the offer's not going to help me.
Yeah, you misspoke a little bit. You said if you had 80,000 in income and your expenses were zero,
No, I
you'd
had
have a lot more.
80,000
If your income
if
less
my
expenses was zero,
Correct.
and your equity in your house after the formula was 40,000, your offer is 40,000.
40.
And
it
if
doesn't
your
matter how
equity in
much
your
I owe.
house after the formula was zero, then your offer can be
$100.
$100.
$100. Okay, so the formula works out like take your income minus your allowable expenses, whatever that number is, that's what you have to pay a certain number of months of to the
Right.
government, plus the equity position you have in a house
So if you had a
or a
Corv-
401k.
So if you had a 1954 Corvette worth $50,000, do you get any allowance for the car?
You get $3,450 allowance.
But that's for the car you're driving, right?
Yes. If you had an investment vehicle in addition to the car you're
Yeah.
driving, no. The equity value of that car, less 20%, is added to your
So
offer.
sometimes you end up having this net dollar amount that you'd have to pay, but if you owe $1 million of taxes, it's still a good program. But if you owe less in taxes than what your net remaining value is of the assets plus
it
your
doesn't
income
work.
and expense, then it doesn't work. Will bankruptcy then help you?
So it depends. The answer is if you have money in your 401k and IRAs and you file a bankruptcy that discharges your tax debt, you get to keep your IRAs and 401ks.
But your 401ks go to your asset values when it
With
comes
the
to
IRS, yeah.
less the amount of taxes you have to pay on those to take the
Yeah.
money out.
But if you have equity in your home, I can't protect it from the IRS because exemptions don't apply to the IRS. So that's where an offer might be a better choice, because you can pay back. Maybe you pay back your $40,000 instead of losing $100,000 in equity to the IRS.
And sometimes the reverse, because sometimes to do an offer, it's a conditional agreement. You have to basically be a good taxpayer for the next 5 years.
There's the stay clean rule we talk about.
You have to file your taxes on time for the following 5 years, and you have to pay all of your tax debt 100% over the following.
Do you find that to be a problem for clients sometimes?
Sometimes.
So here's where I find it is this. A lot of the people that need offers in compromise are self-employed people that fall behind in their taxes because they're paying taxes. They're paying their current year's tax, their last year's taxes from their current year income. The economy dips, and all of a sudden they fall behind.
Yep.
Yeah.
That person who then qualifies for an offer has the problem that going forward they need to be clean, which means they can't continue acting as they have in the past.
Right. So,
and that's not always an easy thing for somebody.
Right, so translation, you have to pay your quarterly taxes on time if you're self-employed,
Right.
and you have to pay your tax liability if you incur one on time
Right.
going forward.
Do you have to pay it by the due date of the return, or if you are on an extension, are you okay if it's paid in by the extension date?
You're okay if it's paid in by the extension date.
The problem that I see, which is why a lot of people end up in bankruptcy instead, is that as hard as they try, they're not going to be able to learn to live within the means that they already have. Because what have they done? If they earned $100, they spent $100.
But then they
didn't pay the government
$20 in taxes.
So now they owe $20 in taxes
plus penalty and interest,
plus
which
penalties
is
and interest,
$35
right?
now.
And they have to learn to live on $65 a month or $65.
Not easy.
It's very difficult, which is why we offer budget management as an additional resource for our clients.
Oh, so you're doing this analysis to turn it into a little pitch there, huh?
It kind of works.
Hey, so sneaky, Brian.
Because
you're such a sneaky guy.
I get people
you
to
must be
learn.
a good bankruptcy attorney if you're that sneaky.
Damn good. I get people to learn to live within their means. If we can
Which
do
is a
that,
good thing, which is not easy.
coupled with taking care of the offer and compromise,
Right.
the client comes out way ahead in the end.
All right, well, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to do a quick case study. We're not going to do the coffee story,
No.
which is the consummate story of your budget
Some
management.
other day.
We will save that for another day. If you've never heard the coffee story,
Tune in.
you could find it on YouTube. We'll be back after the break.
Is the debt piling up? Struggling to get by?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP. You can't work. You have to deal with pain and stress. Worse yet, our system for applying for disability benefits seeks to deny you the benefits you're entitled. Jeff Kirschner is an expert in obtaining disability and workers' compensation benefits for his clients. You need to call Jeff before you apply or after you're denied to get the benefits you deserve. 888-235-HELP. 888-235-HELP. Tax problems are major problems. Don't let the IRS levy your wages and seize your assets. There is a solution.
We're THAV GROSS. Our firm will solve your problem.
If you're behind on your taxes and owe money to the IRS, call THAV GROSS.
We've been solving tax problems for 32 years. We stop wage levies, resolve unfiled returns, and obtain the best possible settlements.
Call THAV GROSS today, 888-235-HELP.
Time for announcements. I want to announce THAV GROSS has opened a new office downriver in the Horizon Building on Eureka Road. So now we're in Flint, downriver, and also our home office in Bingham Farms. Remember, you can always come in for a free consultation. You can do it by Zoom conference, in the office, any way that works best for you. Just call 888-235-HELP or go to the website, thavgross.com, to sign up. Debt issues, tax issues, estate planning issues, business law issues, elder law issues with Pat or Kelsey, disability issues with Jeff Kirschner. Again, sign up at lawandreality.com or thavgross.com or just call 888-235-HELP. Also, if you go to the website, you'll see there's free reports. Resolving Tax Problems, The Real Solutions by Jeff Linden and myself. Bankruptcy, Is It Right for Me by Brian Small. How to Save Your Home from Foreclosure. Business Formations, Loans and Grants for Small Businesses in Detroit and Michigan. And The Retiree's Guide to Social Security by Pat Simasko. I want to thank our sponsors, THAV Gross, Simasko Law, Kirshner Law. Now back to the show.
Carrying too much debt? Resolve your debt. Call THAV Gross.
You don't need to be broke, and you don't need to hit rock bottom. If you have income and you're struggling with debt, dump it. Think about the next 10 or 20 years. If you do what the banks tell you, you'll have nothing to retire with. There is a solution.
Don't waste your future. Call THAV Gross. We're experts at eliminating credit card debt. 888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Okay, Lisa, we have one last question for you. How old should your grandkids be before they can take the money and spend it on their own?
Thanks, Grandma. Thanks, and I'm getting mine next week.
35. You've worked hard your whole life to create a lasting legacy for your heirs. Let Simasko Law help you make the right decisions to protect the ones you love. Simasko Law, protecting what means most, because that's what we do.
If you're retired and in a financial crisis, there is a way out.
It pains me when I see a retired couple exhaust their savings by paying credit card bills and for a home hopelessly underwater.
THAV Gross specializes in helping retired people in financial crisis.
You just can't keep paying until you're broke. You need to address the problem now.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
We're THAV Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
All right, so we're back. So let's do a case study. All right, I'm going to switch it a little bit, and I'm going to make this a business tax one because we've basically vetted the situation where you've got the 80,000 in income and so forth, and if you don't have any assets or the house had net 40,000, that's where you're at. But let's take Jerry. Jerry is now a bartender, but he was formerly a restaurant owner. He owned the restaurant for 7 years. It was a upscale, popular bistro. Everybody knew the place. Everybody liked it. There was only one problem. Jerry never could run the place profitably. No knock on Jerry. Restaurants are probably one of the toughest businesses.
Margins are super small in restaurants.
But this is what Jerry did. When cash was short, he would make the net payroll to his employees, thinking he'll make the payroll tax deposit tomorrow.
Right.
And then when he fell behind, he thought he would make it tomorrow. He'd get caught up because everything would get better
accelerates
in
rapidly.
the future. So he ran this along. Finally, he couldn't sustain it. The payroll taxes were too high. He owed $200,000 of trust fund payroll taxes, which means it was more like $300,000. He got assessed for the amount that was withheld from the employees for federal taxes, for withholding, Medicare, and FICA.
Right. And the key to understand that is that assessment, that trust fund, is his personal liability now.
So he owes that.
He owes that.
The payroll taxes that the company owed, he doesn't owe.
Correct.
Okay. So now, Jerry's single. He rents an apartment. He's making $60,000 a year as a bartender. His net income, let's assume, less his allowable expenses, leaves him $10 a year.
Month.
Okay, $10 a month. What in that situation will a offer and compromise work for Jerry?
Before you answer that, let me tell you what doesn't work for Jerry. A bankruptcy.
Right.
A Chapter 7 bankruptcy will not eliminate the payroll taxes because they're not dischargeable in a bankruptcy ever. You can pay them back through a Chapter 13 or a Chapter 11, but you will not be able to wipe them out in a bankruptcy.
So let's say Jerry also owed $50,000 in credit card debt, and he also owed $20,000 in income taxes from 2020.
Well,
Could those things get wiped out in a bankruptcy?
Jerry would be a good candidate for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy to wipe out all of that.
Those things, but
So-
not
not the payroll tax.
That's payroll
But
taxes.
there's an interesting thing about that, and that's where we might want to do both, because one of the benefits of the bankruptcy on the income tax side is, well, we just talked about that stay clean rule, the probation period for 5 years. Bankruptcy wipes it out, so you don't have that probation period. So in his personal income taxes, he wouldn't have to worry about staying clean for 5 years to stay eligible.
And he
in the
gets rid of
program.
the credit card
And he
debt.
gets rid of the credit card debt, but we'd still want to do an offer in compromise for the payroll tax.
But then wouldn't he have to stay clean anyway?
For the payroll
For the
taxes.
payroll taxes, yes.
But in Jerry's case, he's probably more. If Jerry stays a bartender, doesn't go back into his own business, Jerry's problem giving rise to the tax that's not kind of like the one we were talking about before, where you're self-employed
Right.
and you're the real estate salesperson, you're the insurance guy whose income is dependent on sales.
Right.
And he's paying his taxes in his arrears, the economy dips and the sales go down. Jerry's debt came from a bad business venture.
Right.
As long as he stays out of the restaurant business and he's getting the W-2, he probably will stay clean.
Yeah.
But he should still get rid of the credit card debt.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Take
So,
advantage.
Let me change the facts. Jerry still has $100,000 in his 401k.
So Jerry has $100,000 in his 401k. Then Jerry's minimum offer in that circumstance is going to be $80,000 plus $120, because you take the $10 a month assets income less expenses, you multiply that times 12 to get your minimum offer on the income side. That's $120 for him, but he's got $100,000 of equity in an asset that the government will
Doesn't he
look
get
at
to
80%
take the
of.
taxes off of that first?
That's the 20%.
That's the 20. So the 100 would net to 80.
Yeah.
So in that case, it doesn't become that good of a thing for him. You could put him on a payment plan instead, or could you put him into a 13, Brian, to help
So
him?
a 13 will only control the debt and not discharge the debt. So if he only had, as I said, $10 a month available, no, he's not really going to qualify for a Chapter 13. But if we had $200 a month, we could put him in a 60-month Chapter 13 and control the debt. But it's not going away.
Can I ask a general question?
You can.
If you're between $10 and $200 a month in a budget, is there usually enough wiggle room to get the analysis to where you want it to be?
Yes, there is.
Okay. What's the range of wiggle?
Range of wiggle, $150.
Okay, so
Ish.
you can use it because the trustees look at it carefully, but
Yeah.
you still have issues to.
I mean, it comes down to the fact that there are a lot of expenses people forget about.
All right. For the next show, we all, the audience, the panel, everyone wants to see the Brian Small wiggle.
I don't think
Have
so.
a great week. We'll be back next week with Law and Reality.